Hey guys, so we're actually heading to the Ford dealership now to take a look at some sketchy discounts. I haven't seen anything like this from this dealership before, where usually they're pretty stuck in their ways and just straight up don't discount stuff. Pretty much everything sells at MSRP or above there, and then if it doesn't, it just sits. Now to see some of these trucks are $7,000, $8,000 off MSRP is kind of wild. So yeah, we're gonna see what that's about. We're going to start with this Oxford White Ford F-150 STX. This is a 2024. It's going to have that 3.5 liter V6. And strangely, the cheapest F-150 at the whole dealership is, well, cheapest new F-150, I should say, is actually a 4x4, which was really surprising. You'd think they'd have a two-wheel drive thrown somewhere in there. But yeah, this guy was 52 grand, MSRP sticker. So after all the discounts and everything, it's running right around 46, which, yeah, that's really high. I would never pay 46 grand for an F-150. But seeing what we have seen in the past and some of the other prices we're going to see today, and generally how this dealership's manners have been when it comes to selling, how they're just like, I don't care how it goes, we're going to market MSRP or higher, and you're just going to deal with it. Like that. This is the same dealership that had the Maverick that I showed 2 videos ago. That was like 40 grand or something. It was ridiculous. So to see them actually having, I don't even want to say real world prices because they're still pretty high, but they are significantly lower than what we've seen in the past here. So yeah, I mean, overall, it's a clean truck. It looks nice until you realize the flaw. And I think this was finally the breaking point for this dealership. And it was something that completely skipped my mind. I remember when it happened, obviously it's a big deal, but, I don't know how I didn't put 2 and 2 together. So, as some of you know, I live in Middle Tennessee, and all these dealers that I go to are in Middle Tennessee, southern Middle Tennessee. And here recently, we had a really, really, really bad set of thunderstorms come through. Absolutely monstrous. Many tornadoes touched down. Down near Huntsville, they had one go over the main hospital there, a tornado. And then down by Fayetteville, they had some tornadoes. So, yeah, it's definitely a bad storm for sure. But what also comes with storms, obviously, other than tornadoes, is hail. And I have never seen this much hail damage in one place. I don't know how this dealer and Nissan, which we'll see later, got so lucky that basically every bit of their inventory has ding, chip, dink, dot, it's just everywhere. And, whenever I mentioned to the sales guy, I don't think he liked it very much. I don't know how he expected me to not notice it, though. He goes up and he's like, oh, man, you interested in the truck? I was talking about the F-150. And I was like, hey, man, I was just wondering about this hail damage. It's really bad. And he was like, we'll work on the numbers. We'll work on the numbers. And I was like, yeah, but I saw they're already discounted online. So will you go lower than that? Or is that what you're talking about? He was like, oh, well, no, I just meant the online price. We can't really budge off those. So we couldn't really go any lower than that. And then I'm just thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, you want me to pay $46,000 for effectively a base model truck that's pre-hail damage before I get it? It's just ridiculous, But anyway, moving on from that, like I said, it was just kind of funny to see it's just everywhere. And some of these big ticket trucks, like the F-150 Lightnings were there. They had a couple F-350s there. They had a Mustang Mach-E. They had 4 of the new Mustangs, 2 GT and 2 4-cylinders. All of them are just wrecked with hail damage. So it's so sad. And I was like, well, is there any kind of like repair plan or anything? He was like, well, no, it'll just be negotiated when you buy it. And I'm just like, people are going to do that? I mean, I'm sure people will. People have done stupider things for sure, but I don't know. I'm not buying a car with hail damage, especially not if we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. At least not one that is hail damage before I ever even get it, So, but we'll circle back to that later. Let's go ahead and move on to some other truck. Next one I found is actually another STX 4x4 with a 3.5 V6. But this one's black. And I personally, if I was to buy one of these, which I have really no interest in them. But if I was to buy one, it would probably be this style. I like the STX trim package. And this was just a really clean truck, and it didn't look like the hail damage was that bad on this one compared to some of the others. I mean, there was some for sure, but some of them, like I said, were just wrecked. Anyway, this guy was 53 sticker, like 52.8 or something like that. And after discounts and everything, it was 50 or sorry, after discounts and everything, it was $46,500, which, I mean, is a pretty hefty discount once you consider everything, and seeing where this dealership has been. So it's good to see they're getting a little more real world with their prices, but I think they're going to have to get real world more still. I think they're going to have a more of a shock whenever their cheap trucks are still not selling and they can't figure out why. And it's because they're still overpriced and they still have, you know, thousands of dollars worth of hail damage to them. I mean, some of those you're just going to have to live with. And yeah, I mean, it's rough. Now, the XLTs, on the other hand, they have a bigger monetary discount, but I think that the price is still not where it should be for an XLT F-150. It's still pretty ridiculous, in my opinion. So base price on this guy is $63,000, and it's marked down to $55,000, which about an $8,000 discount. I mean, fair enough. That's $8,000 is not a small amount of money, but $55,000 for an XLT F-150 is just wild. I mean, I was looking at the Nissan Titans right next door, and I don't know, for whatever reason, a Titan always, in my mind, it's more comparable to like an F-250. I don't know, maybe it's just because it has the diesel options and everything. But the Titan, to me, was always like one step above the F-150, and to see them about equally priced is kind of weird. I know a lot of people don't like Nissans, and, you know, will probably be like, oh, well, the Ford's going to be much more reliable or whatever. But yeah, that's just how I've always thought about them. I'm not really sure why, but it always seemed like the Frontier was kind of like, especially after the reboot, was more like fighting with the Ranger and the F-150, and then the Titan was more geared toward F-250 and guys who towed and needed a big bed and stuff like that. I don't know, it's just kind of a chunky truck, so that's kind of what I was thinking. But yeah, $55,000 for XLT F-150 is just ridiculous. So you can't go to the Ford dealership without mentioning the F-150 Lightnings. Yes, these are the very same F-150 Lightnings that we saw not only last time when I went, but the time before that. So if you go back on this channel and there's a video, gosh, it has to be 9 months old at this point. It's, you know, I think it's the first video we have on here. If you look in that video, there is, of course, there's some lifted crap trucks that are 100 grand, but there's two F-150 Lightnings there. And those are the same exact F-150 Lightnings that are still there to this day. And it's just wild to me that nobody wants those. Just take them on, bro. Like, leave. They have a Mach-E up there, too. It's a different Mach-E than I think we saw last time. But I don't know who's buying those either, for being honest. But, and then we saw some interesting repos. Well, I think they're repos. They almost have to be. They're trade-ins. But some of the cars that are coming back looks like I spec'd this out to exactly like dream car spec, and then I lost it. So we had this beautiful Bronco. I'm not, you know, a super fan of the Bronco reboot or anything, but this is a cool looking truck. And to see it, you know, being only a couple years old and then being kicked back up here with hardly no miles on it, it's just wild. Same thing with these F-350s. It's just, it's wild. And the only F-350s on the lot, these two guys, were used, which I thought that was weird. They didn't have a single new Ranger. They had this blue Ranger here. And I didn't get pricing on it in person, so we'll have to check that out. Yeah, it's just wild. I don't know. Just to see all those really high trim, high spec cars. And then whenever you look at this right here, just take a gander. This is a Expedition going for $75,000 for just run-of-the-mill silver Expedition. I mean, I always knew SUVs were expensive. And I mean, you know, Armadas and Palisades and the Kia one, Tellurides, they're all like, oh, fancy. But, bro, $75,000 for an SUV is just, can't do it. It's just stupid. I mean, I don't know how to explain it otherwise. Regardless, yeah, moving on from that, just a lot of hail damage and discounts that looks almost proportional to what the damage is. I mean, of course, you're not going to spend $8,000 repairing hail damage, and at least I hope you're not. But, yeah, I mean, the pricing on these guys, they're getting better for sure, but I hate that it took a whole thunderstorm and ruining all your inventory to be like, oh, hey, well, maybe we should lower prices a little bit. Like, huh? It's just stupid. Anyway, let's move on to Nissan. So, oh, and also before I go on, like I said, they didn't have a single Ranger on the lot that was new or anything like that. Of course, they're supposedly in high demand, but I think it's really just because they can't meet production. I asked the guy too. I was like, oh, well, I bet those Frontiers are giving you a run for your money. He was like, no, they hadn't sold them. They had a bunch and they still do. No, there's a lot gone. I mean, if you look at my video this time versus last time, those Frontiers are moving. He can say they aren't all day long, but they are. And yeah, I mean, the F1, I mean, the Ranger is a cool truck, and the reboot styling has a lot of people, you know, on the fence. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the new Rangers. I really don't care for them. A lot of people do though, and I think that's why that they are moving. But yeah, for them not to have a single one on their lot and to be advertising a used one, it's like, oh, you want a Ranger? I got a used one back there. You're just like, no, bro, that's not. It's just ridiculous. I had some overpriced Mavericks as always. I don't know how they always manage to get an overpriced Maverick in, but yeah, moving on to Nissan. Like I said, they hail damage everywhere. I went in there and I was trying to look for, they claim to have a manual spec Sentra on their, manual spec Versa on their website, but they didn't. They didn't actually have it at the store, so I ended up just vetoing that and just kind of looking around. Lots of hail damage, a whole bunch of Nissan Kixes. So if you want a Kicks, a 2023 model or 2024, like the pre-design refresh, because there's a brand new one for 25, you can have these, I'm sure, for pennies. They're, not only do they have a bunch of them, not only are they already heavily discounted, I believe they're 22 sticker and like 18.9 right at 19 on the website, but they also have hail damage. So I'm sure you could get this for, I don't even know. I wouldn't pay anything over 16.5 for one with hail damage. I'd never buy Kicks just because I don't trust the CVT. But yeah, I mean, if you were in the market for one already, heck, definitely pick up one of these while, you know, if you're going to buy a Kicks of the older generation, buy it now. But yeah, I mean, look at these Frontiers. They're gone down in price a lot too, even more so than the last video I made. And I think they are compounding the discounts they already had on them, and then they're taking off a little more for hail damage. So what I wanted to say though and bring up is that Nissan seems to be approaching the hail damage a lot better than the Ford dealership. It seems like the Ford dealership is kind of assessing each car and taking off a little chunk accordingly. So for instance, that STX, that white one, was really, really bad dinged up, and it's the cheapest truck on their lot now, you know, at 46 or whatever. But the XLT had less dings, and it's still, you know, I mean, the pricing is lower, but it's not, oh, it's so much lower, you know. So where Nissan, I think, is doing more of a blanket type deal. I think they just have so much more inventory that they can't really assess each truck. So there was plenty of them there that was very minimal, you know, but we're still part of that hefty price discount. You know, like I said, we kind of walked around a lot. There was a lot of hail damage, a lot of discounts. And that's, I think the main takeaway of this video is stuff still isn't selling. So just keep holding out, guys. And be aware of some stuff like hail damage and storms and, you know, potentially other things that you might not initially think about when buying a car. I mean, I completely, it went over my head whenever I thought about it, and I was like, oh, it took me driving to the lot. You know, online, I was like, oh, this is a really good deal. They're marking these prices down. And then I got to the lot, and I'm like, oh, that's why. It's because everything's dinged up. So you got to keep that stuff in mind. So just be mindful whenever you're looking at cars, and if you see some weird, sketchy discounts, it's probably a reason for it. In this case, it was something as simple as hail damage, and that may or may not play to your advantage. Like I said, if you could get potentially one of those Nissans that, if you don't care about the hail damage, you just need a cheap car, or you got one that maybe didn't get damaged, but it's still part of that damaged inventory and still participated in the discounts, then hey, you might get off lucky and get off with a cheaper car. But yeah, guys, I'll keep you updated. Sorry for the lack in video posting. There just hasn't been much going on, and I try to look around and see stuff, and then I really want to catch changes, but there just hasn't been much going on. So yeah, till next time, guys, I'll see y'all later.